From the 1948 Arab-Israeli War to the Suez Crisis of 1956, and let's not forget the intense Six-Day War in 1967 and the Yom Kippur War of 1973, Egypt and Israel have quite the resume when it comes to conflicts. These events have left an imprint on the region, shaping their interactions and Egypt's concerns, especially with the ongoing Israel and Palestine war in 2023. Talking about the war, we're going to uncover the reasons why Egypt might be just a little bit nervous about its neighbor's military prowess to the extent that they are reluctant to use its military to assist Gaza in the ongoing conflict with Israel. From historical scars to contemporary geopolitics, it's a story that'll keep you glued to your screen. So, without further ado, let's roll. Historical conflicts. The mid-20th century was a turbulent time in the Middle East as Egypt and Israel were downright rivals, and thus the first reason Egypt is wary of Israel's military might goes way back to those days. Let's rewind to the 1940s. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War, also known as the First Arab-Israeli War, was a defining moment in the region's history. It kicked off when Israel declared its independence, and neighboring Arab states, including Egypt, intervened to support the Palestinian cause. Then, during the '67 Six-Day War, Egypt and Israel, along with other neighbors, faced off in a whirlwind of conflict. Israel made a lightning-fast preemptive strike, seizing control of the Sinai Peninsula and Gaza Strip, among other territories. And let's not forget the Yom Kippur War in '73. Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in Judaism. It was a fierce battle, and although Israel eventually regained the upper hand. Geopolitical rivalry. Egypt sees Israel as a regional powerhouse because they've got military might, they've got technological prowess, and they've got international influence, a trio that puts them at the top of the pecking order in the Middle East. Furthermore, Israel's military strength and strategic alliances have made it a force to be reckoned with. They've got the Iron Dome, a missile defense system. It's so good that it intercepts rockets mid-flight, like swatting mosquitoes out of the sky. In contrast, Egypt's military capabilities are, well, not quite on the same level. Historically, Egypt has played a central role in the Arab world, and they don't want to cede that influence to Israel, so they've been rivals for decades. Sinai Peninsula. The Sinai Peninsula is a hotbed of concern and intrigue in the Egyptian-Israeli dynamic. To understand why Egypt is on edge about this, we need to step back in time a bit. Back in the day, the Sinai was part of Egypt, but then came the Six-Day War in 1967, and Israel seized control of the peninsula. Fast forward to the Camp David Accords in 1978, where Egypt and Israel shook hands and agreed to make peace. The Sinai Peninsula was part of the deal. Israel agreed to give it back to Egypt, but with some conditions. Currently, Egypt is concerned about potential security threats coming from the Sinai. It's a tough neighborhood to police, and instability can easily spill over into Egypt. Asymmetry in military power. It is well known that Israel's military is sleek, sophisticated, and oh so efficient, as it's got all the fancy gadgets, from high-tech fighter jets to cutting-edge missile defense systems. On the other side, Egypt's no pushover. It's got a large, well-trained military. Notably, Israel's defense budget is around $20 billion. Now, Egypt's defense budget is about $10 billion, which is half of Israel's. Furthermore, Israel has around 2,700 tanks. Egypt has more, about 4,000. So, on paper, Egypt seems to have the upper hand. But Israel's tanks are modern, packed with advanced technology and battle-tested experience, while Egypt's tanks are a bit more old school. Furthermore, Israel's one of the most advanced air forces in the world. Their F-35 fighter jets are more advanced and modern than Egypt's impressive aircraft. Strategic depth. Israel is a neighbor with a high-tech security system, while Egypt, on the other hand, while not defenseless, doesn't have all the fancy military gadgets as their military capabilities are, well, a few steps behind. Now, in the world of international politics and military strategy, that's a bit like being defenseless. This power imbalance means that Israel's well-equipped military can make moves with confidence, and that's where the concept of strategic depth comes into play. Historically, Egypt has found itself in situations where it's had to rethink its strategy because of this power imbalance. Egypt's concern is that Israel, with its formidable military, could potentially make aggressive moves that threaten their security or interests. Peace treaty obligations. Back in 1979, Egypt and Israel signed the Egypt-Israel Peace Treaty, brokered by the United States, which made Egypt the first Arab country to officially recognize Israel. The treaty obligates both countries to certain terms and conditions, including military limitations and restrictions on troop movements near the border. Egypt, however, has stuck to these limits quite diligently, while Israel, well, it has maintained a bit of flexibility. The concern here is that, in the event of a military escalation or a security threat, these treaty limitations might not hold. Regional alliances. Israel has managed to cultivate strategic alliances with some big players on the global stage, such as the United States. As a result, Egypt worries about the extent to which Israel's alliances can influence regional dynamics. For instance, the United States provides Israel with a whopping $3.8 billion in military aid annually. This support is like a lifeline, allowing Israel to invest in top-of-the-line military technology, including missile defense systems, fighter jets, and more. Besides, the US also got Israel's back in international forums, making sure Israel's interests were protected. Now, Egypt gets its fair share of US aid too, but it's not in the same amount that Israel receives. That creates a power imbalance. So they're keenly aware that Israel's alliances can shape regional politics and dynamics. Domestic and regional politics. Egypt's connection with Israel is sensitive domestically, as its region is where anti-Israel sentiment runs deep. Thus, Egypt's leadership isn't just focused on international diplomacy but also keeps a close eye on public opinion. Back in 1979, Egypt made history by signing the Egypt-Israel Peace Treaty, becoming the first Arab country to officially recognize Israel. But that didn't sit well with everyone. Furthermore, public opinion can shape a country's foreign policy. Leaders need to balance the benefits of diplomacy and peace with Israel against the potential backlash from their own citizens. Besides, anti-Israel sentiment is no small thing in the Middle East. So, Egypt's leaders have to be cautious and considerate. They don't want to appear too cozy with Israel, which might lead to unrest or backlash at home. Potential for intervention. Egypt is concerned about the potential for Israeli military involvement in neighboring conflicts such as those in Syria, Gaza, or other hotspots in the region. This concern goes beyond just being a nosy neighbor, it's about regional stability in Egypt's own security interests, as when a military powerhouse like Israel gets involved in conflicts in the neighborhood, it creates ripples that can affect everyone nearby. For example, take the ongoing conflict in Syria. Israel has conducted airstrikes there, targeting weapons shipments to Hezbollah, a militant group in Lebanon. While their goal is to prevent weapons from falling into the wrong hands, these actions can have wider implications, as when Israel intervenes in these conflicts, it can disrupt that balance and create uncertainties. Pre-emptive strikes. Back in the Six-Day War of 1967, Israel made a move that sent shockwaves through the region. Israel launched a preemptive strike against Egypt, and in just 6 days, they captured the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, West Bank, and the Golan Heights. It was a game-changer, rewriting the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. Now, this historical event matters because Egypt remembers that their neighbor to the northeast, Israel, has a history of making bold, decisive moves, and thus Egypt is cautious about the possibility of future preemptive strikes. Egypt wants to ensure its security and stability, and a surprise military move from Israel could disrupt the status quo. Conclusion. Decades of tension, including the Six-Day War, have left a legacy of mistrust and concern as Egypt sees Israel as a regional power with significant influence and military strength, and the shared border and potential security threats make this region a particular concern for Egypt. Besides, Israel's advanced military technology and well-equipped forces create a significant power imbalance, and thus Egypt, which values space, would take a lot of time to respond effectively in the event of a military escalation. The historical precedent of the Six-Day War makes Egypt cautious about the possibility of future Israeli military actions. Thanks for joining us, hit that like button if you've enjoyed this journey, subscribe for more fascinating insights, and share this video.